Hello, welcome. This is a lesson on the discriminant, and we'll explain what that is here in just a second. First of all, the quadratic formula is used to solve quadratic equations. And so the quadratic formula is taken from when you have the, uh, the, the standard form of a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And a must not be equal to 0. If a were equal to 0, you wouldn't have that first x squared term, and you'd have a linear equation instead of a quadratic equation. And it has the solutions to the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And the discriminant is part of that formula. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac, or it's the part that's under the radical. It's just the number that's under the radical, b squared minus 4ac. And the discriminant tells us about the number and types of solutions of a quadratic equation without actually solving it. It is not the solution, it is a number that gives us information about the solutions. It also tells us how many x-intercepts the graph of the equation has. Solutions are also called roots or zeros of the quadratic equation. All right, let's take a look at this. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, or if it has a positive discriminant, then you have two real solutions. And they a graph of an equation that has this solutions would look something like this. Have two places where it would cross the x-axis, whether it's upward facing or downward facing. It's going to have two places where it crosses the x-axis. So we're going to have two x-intercepts. And those would coincide with the x values of those. If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, then you have one real solution. And this is what that might look like. It's going to come down. It's going to have one place where it touches the x-axis, and then it's going to turn around and go the other direction. Or it could also be facing downward. And it could look like that, or it could also be on the positive side, or for that matter, it could also be just right in the center. But it's going to be just touching the x-axis in one spot. And that's what happens when your discriminant is equal to 0. And then we've got b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, and you have a negative discriminant or negative number under the radical, and then you have two non-real solutions, or no real solutions. You do have solutions, they are just non-real solutions. And this happens when the graph of your quadratic does not touch the x-axis at all. And that could be like this, whether it's upward facing and above the x-axis, or downward facing and below the x-axis. But it doesn't touch the x-axis. So therefore has no x-intercepts. And over here this has one x-intercept. All right, let's take a look at what this looks like. Examples say to find the discriminant of each quadratic equation and state the number and type, real or non-real, of the solutions. So on A is 11, B is negative 5, C is negative 5. And so we write out b squared minus 4ac, and b is negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 11, times c, which is negative 5. And then you can plug this into your calculator and get the value. Just if you're struggling with order of operations and the signs of these operations, I would recommend you just put that in your calculator. But you can also evaluate it like we're going to do here. Negative 5 squared is 25. And then negative 4 and a negative 5, those cancel out. You get plus. And 4 times 5 is 20 times 11. Grab my calculator. Yeah, it's 220. And 220 plus 25 would be 245. And so there's our discriminant. That's not the solution. It is just the value under the radical. And it indicates that we have two real solutions. All right. Let's look at example B. So just want to check to make sure that it is in standard form, and it is. You've got your squared term, and then your single term, and then you've got your constant. So A is 8, B is negative 4, and C is 12. Once again, B squared minus 4AC. B is negative 4 squared. Make sure you put that in parentheses. If you if you just put negative 4 squared, that's equal to negative 16. But negative 4 quantity squared is positive 16. So you need to make sure you write that in parentheses. Minus 4 times A, which is 8, times C, which is 12. And negative 4 squared, like I said, that's 16. Minus, and then 4 times 8 times 12 is 384. And when I do that subtraction, 16 minus 384, I get negative 368. And that's the value of the discriminant. And because it is negative, we have two non-real solutions, 0 real solutions. All right, let's go to the next example. C. Now this one is not in standard form. So the first step is to put that in standard form. So we've got 9x squared plus 1 equals 6x. I'm going to rewrite that as 9x squared. Subtracting 6x from both sides would give us negative 6x plus 1 equals 0. And A then is 9, B is negative 6, and C is 1. We go to our discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. In our next lesson, by the way, we're going to put that discriminant together and find the solutions. This is not finding the solutions. This is just finding the value that tells us about the solutions. So b is negative 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 9, times c, which is 1. And negative 6 squared is 36. Negative times negative is positive. And then negative 4 times 9 times 1 is negative 36 as well. 36 minus 36 is 0. So the value of our discriminant is 0. Once again, if you look back to our little chart up above, when your discriminant is equal to 0, this means you have one real solution. All right, moving on here. D, 2x squared equals 7x plus 1. It's not equal to 0 on the one side. It's not in standard form. So we're going to rewrite this, subtracting 7x and minus 1 so that they're all together. We get 2x squared minus 7x minus 1 equals 0. Now you might ask, could I subtract the 2x squared from both sides and leave it on the other side? Sure, you could do that. It would change the signs, but it would change the signs in such a way that it would work out to the same value of the discriminant. So here, A is 2, B is negative 7, C is negative 1. So B squared minus 4AC, and I recommend that you copy that down many times so that you get it committed to memory. So B is negative 7 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is negative 1. And negative 7 squared is 49. And then I've got a negative 4 and a negative 1. Those are going to cancel each other out, making this plus rather than minus. 4 times 2 is 8, times the 1 is also 8. 49 plus 8, 57. And because 57 is positive, this means there are 2 real solutions. All right, we're moving right along here. E. This one is in standard form. So we see that A is 8, B is negative 8, C is 5. So B squared minus 4AC. B is, as I said, negative 8 squared. Make sure you put that in parentheses. Minus 4 times A, which is 8, times C, which is 5. And negative 8 squared is positive 64. Minus, and 4 times 8 times 5 is 160. And 64 minus 160 is negative 96. So the value of our discriminant is negative 96. This means there are 2 non-real solutions. And once again, that means zero non-real or 0 real solutions, 2 non-real solutions. There are solutions, but they involve an imaginary number, because when you have a negative under the radical, remember the square root of negative 1 is the imaginary unit I, and so you're going to have the unit I in your answer when you find the answers. All right, let's look at F. Again, it's in standard form. We like that. A is 6, B is 12, and C is also 6. B squared minus 4AC. B is 12 squared minus 4 times A, which is 6, times C, which is 6. And 12 squared is 144 minus 4 times 6 times 6, which is also 144. And 144 minus 144 is 0. And so once again, when we see 0 as the discriminant, the value of the discriminant, this means there are 1 real solutions. All right, just a couple more here to go. 4n squared equals negative 12n plus 3. We need to rewrite this, so we're going to write it as 4n squared. Bringing the negative 12n over becomes plus 12n, and the plus 3 becomes minus 3, equal to 0. So A equals 4, B equals 12, and C equals negative 3. Once again, B squared minus 4AC. B is 12, so that's 12 squared minus 4 times A, which is 4, times C, which is negative 3. And 12 squared is 144 minus 4 times 4 times 3 is 48, but because there's a negative and a negative, this is going to be plus 48, and 144 plus 48 is 192, and is positive. Since it's positive, this means there are two real solutions. All right, H. We got 12n squared minus n equals negative 6. We're going to rewrite this as 12n squared minus n plus 6. Bringing the 6 over to the other side makes it plus. So you have to add it to both sides. And this is equal to 0. So A is 12, B is negative 1, and C is 6. So we plug that into our b squared minus 4ac. B is negative 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 12, times c, which is 6. And we get negative 1 squared is just positive 1, minus, and then 4 times 12 times 6 is 288. So I take 1 minus 288, I get negative 287. And this is obviously negative, which means we have two non-real solutions. There you have it. Practice, practice, practice. You'll do great.